Hi, Tor. I'm so excited to be talking to you yet again about your music. It's been a few
Yeah,
years.
likewise. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, when was the last time we saw each other? It was Drake Hotel, maybe, what is that, like 3 or 4 years ago?
It's probably about that, yeah. I guess the
Crazy.
last 2 years don't feel like 2 years. I'm having trouble estimating anything at this point.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a wash. It's a wash. That's why I'm like, I'm still 26, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I turned 30 in a few months and I don't like that.
No, no, it doesn't
I
count.
missed,
Yeah. You get like at least a year off. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's fair. I'm gonna make that's how we're going with this so far.
Yeah,
But
no, 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 easy.
because if I turn 30, I will be at my all-time low, which is the
Hell yeah.
song I would love to talk to you about because, oh my God, I really love this song.
Thanks.
And it's cool to see you releasing music independently now. How has that been for you so far?
It's been cool, like I mean, I'd say that the greatest part of it really has been the creation of it was very liberating, you know. Like not to get into a long tangent about it and and all, but there'd be moments while on a label where I felt that there's so many people looking over your shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just have a million voices in your head, and whether intentions are good or not, that's almost irrelevant. It's just you become so cluttered. So it was a very nice feeling to just be free with the creation. And I think that's why with this record, it's pretty eclectic and all over. Like it's just more risks being taken. Um, but with All Time Low specifically, like I'd written that song, I don't know, 2016 or something, and it had never come out on a record. And for one reason or another, either people say maybe it doesn't fit and it didn't work with this project. So I'm glad after all of that to be putting it out and doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
It's been
Also,
good.
the label, I love the label you're with. I do.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was a very varied label in terms of genre and what they were covering. And I think it's sometimes hard for people to look at the label and then go, oh, this artist. Because I feel like you were very different from a lot of their artists. It's hard to know, like, you can't
Yeah.
be like, oh, partner them up on a tour and send them off together. It's a
Yeah,
bit
because I
different.
mean, I did the Aurora tour and that was amazing and I love her, but it doesn't quite make sense, And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that was kind of the consistent issue. I had played several shows with some of their artists, and it just the genre was so different. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that's kind of like where I feel kind of like an outlier and out in a certain sense or outcast, like a little bit finding it hard to know like what is my musical world? Who are the artists
Mm-hmm.
I'm similar to? And um, they're obviously out there, but I just don't really know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your music has such like a old-timey New York feel to it. Like it's so classy and even especially the video for All Time Low, it's so beautiful and like it feels very like old noir, like it just feels very New York. Um, but I really like the direction you're taking with everything now. The videos feel really inspired, the music feels really inspired. It's very cool to see. Um,
Thanks.
but I guess now that you have this sort of freedom to create what you want, how is that influencing these new things that you're putting together in terms of you don't have to hold back? Nobody's going to tell you you can't do this. It doesn't fit our vision.
You know, I it's something I've talked about quite a bit, and I feel as though the nice thing about this record, and really the first time I've ever felt this way, is that I really don't care what people think about it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very liberating feeling. I never felt that with the first two records. And so, in that way, I feel extremely fulfilled, and it seems as if I've sort of reached kind of a new, uh, just a new vantage point on life and my artistry, and sort of building up the confidence. Because after being dropped and the whole, last several years, it's like you kind of get crushed by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very much a steady journey to build back the pieces, of sort of my confidence. Um, and yeah, have I answered your question? I almost
I
forget
think
what it
so.
was. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Just about, you have this independence to kind of do whatever you want with your career now. And like, you don't have to fit into what somebody else tells you fits their plan for you.
Yeah, I think that very much too, that there's elements of the music industry that are so fear-based,
Hmm.
really kind of pressuring you to do something because otherwise, if you don't do it this way, you're going to fail. So you start building up this idea in your mind of like sort of considering failure all the time
Hmm.
as the barometer for doing anything. And so I just wanted to be free of that, and with this record, it just felt fun. And if anything else, like I made like an incredible friend out of it in Adrian, and we've become extremely close. And he's someone that inspires me greatly. He has his own music that he works on for himself as well as mine, and yeah, it just built an incredible bond. So there was so many beautiful things that came out of it, like my confidence, like renewed, this amazing friendship, like just having an appreciation for music again in a very pure way, and not being as concerned with the metrics and the data analytics and the marketing, and just being like, wow, it's so fun to make this record.
Hmm. Is Adrian somebody that you just started working with now, or was he somebody you got to know through the earlier, like more signed part of your career?
I met Adrian when I was a sophomore at NYU. He had just transferred there. My friends, I lived with two of my friends, and we used to throw these parties at our place because we had a backyard. Like we just found this like awesome place for a great deal. And so we threw these parties, and they started growing and growing and growing, and more people came. So a mutual friend brought him to one, and we started talking about music, and then that began our friendship. And we had sort of discussed working together for years, and just the timing was never right. I was with Glassnote, I was traveling so much, he was working on his own thing. And then it became very apparent to me like this relationship with the label is not going to last. So I better figure out what the hell I'm doing.
Hmm.
And so I spoke to him, and then the timing just sort of made sense. And we started by I would just show him stuff I was working on, and he would have some suggestions, and it was very casual. Eventually, he started getting more involved in the writing process, so it was very natural. So we started making the record. I would say the end of 2019. We just jumped right in. We were like, should we just do this? And we're like, yeah. And it's been incredible. I think I've learned over the years that the stuff or the art that I make that I feel closest to is when I'm working with my friends, and I feel very fortunate to have so many incredibly talented ones around. So with the videos, like All Time Low music video, for instance, that's Ian Wallace. We went to NYU together. We had been talking about making a video for 10 years, and then just did our first with this one. And so it's been really great.
That's awesome. And I feel like there's also like a different type of vulnerability when you're with people you already trust and working with them as opposed to like a stranger who you're not quite sure how they'll take your ideas. Like you can kind of be more open in those situations.
Well, yeah, and I think that that kind of touches back upon what I was saying earlier about like gaining such a great friend, because we shared a lot. We spent so much time together every single day, all through the night, for a year,
Mhm.
And so we learned everything about each other. We would talk, like, I mean, you spend time together in the studio, you're not always making music, You have
Mhm.
to sort of connect. And so then in that way, like I certainly felt very open with him, that I could discuss whatever it was I felt. And that's special. I think that that's when you dig a bit deeper, you know, because you can write. I've done millions of songwriting sessions, and you can write with a stranger and do something incredible, and but
Mhm.
it is kind of a beautiful thing to grow with somebody and experience it together. And I was saying too, I consider Tor Miller to be almost a duo now, and he's very as equal sort of creative contributor to it.
That's very cool. And also, speaking of songwriting sessions, I was just casually scrolling through my Instagram stories the other day and saw you with No Disco, who's one of my favorite like emerging Ontario artists right now.
Sick. Yeah, he's great.
I was
Yeah,
like, wow, this is a
we
collab I didn't know I needed. Like, there it is.
yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that makes me happy. His manager Hayden, I had been connected to through a friend, and we were talking, and he was telling me about Chris and how he had this artist and he's writing songs, and that Hayden really liked my songwriting, and so we just finished our first song together, all via Zoom. I love it. I think it's great, and we've been having an awesome time. So I think we'll just continue going and writing, and but I'm happy that you know who he is. Yeah.
Oh, he was the last show I saw before lockdown.
Get out.
Last thing I did, it was his first ever show. And I was like, wow, this is so exciting. I can't wait for the next one. And I never went to a show again.
Wow. Well, that's funny
So,
because in New York City, I played a show at Bowery Ballroom on February 28th. And that was like everyone I know, that was their like last weekend out. So
mhm,
many people were like, that's the last thing I did before shit hit the fan.
that's it. But yeah, that'll be a really cool project to hear. I'm excited for that. But yeah, I was actually going to ask you. I feel like a lot of people kind of turn to songwriting with other people just to kind of feel connected during quarantine and just like, zooming with other creatives and keeping things going. Um, have you, I guess you have been doing some songwriting with other people. Is that something you've kind of like expanded upon more? Or,
Yeah, well, so interestingly enough, during the pandemic, I had been contacted by a friend of mine, Mel, and she was talking to me, wasn't previously in music, but, has had, a very sort of difficult time and has overcome a lot. And she was saying, I've dealt with so many things. I've confronted whatever, and I have. It's always been a dream of mine to release a song and a single, and I'd love to just. I have this poetry I write, and I'd love to make something out of it. And so I looked at her music, and it was really great. And then introduced her to a friend of mine who was a producer, and then we started making it. And so, like, long story short, it's evolved into this thing where we've done an entire EP. We're making another one. I'm like sort of stepped in as her manager, and um, we just we've booked three headlining shows, all of which have like sold out, and it's growing, and become this beautiful thing. So that's been my other side project to my own record, which has been fun, and it's really nice to kind of expand and try different facets of music and to not necessarily always be the one who's the face of what they're writing.
mhm, that's really cool. I like how it turned from like, I just want to record one song into like multiple EPs and sold out shows. That's a
Well, it
huge shift.
blossomed. Yeah, it blossomed. It was really funny because, I was just doing it because I wanted to help her out. We're friends, and like, it was just it came from such a pure place, which is what I love about it. But we did the first song. She hit it off so well with Jack, the producer. We started showing it to several people, and the reaction that we got was uh, extremely encouraging. And so then it just sort of happened. And we were like, I guess this is a real thing now. And like, really, she's killing these shows, and there's a buzz now in New York City about her, and it's very cool. So Mel Forever is her artist name, and you should check it out. It's so could not be more different from what I make, which is what I
Mhm.
love about it. But it's very much like hyper pop, 100 gex, Charlie XCX, Slater, Kim Petras kind of vibe.
Nice.
So it's fun. It's really really fun.
That's very cool. And it gives you a chance to kind of like, dip your toes in different genres as well and like expand your knowledge of writing different types of music.
Well, it's definitely opened my world. Now I feel as if I growing up was had such a one track mind. I was so tunnel vision about what I wanted and who I was going to be, and I would never deviate from that. This was my one thing. I'm going to be my own artist, and I'm just going to pursue this, and anything else is a distraction. which has really shifted now in the last few years, where I want to work with as many people as possible because I realize like collaborating, how inspiring that is for your own work and just how fulfilling it really can be. And so it's funny, how your perspective shifts
Hmm.
and how you can be so convinced of who you are and what you're going to be for the rest of your life. And for that to just kind of naturally change is a nice thing. I feel very happy.
That's good. Yeah, it's I think also the industry makes it tough to stick to one project too and like just do one thing when, streaming doesn't pay out properly and vinyl's
Yeah, I mean,
backlogged, and it's like they make it really hard to just be like, this is the one thing I'm gonna do and this will be it. I can just do this.
no, you have to branch out, or I mean,
Yeah.
you'll never survive. Yeah. So I mean, that's an element of it as well, which like you can't ignore. But yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. And I guess now that you've been writing, I mean, I is the new album done?
finished. Yeah.
Wow. So the new album is done and you're an independent artist. And I feel like it's probably a little bit more real and exciting now that you're back on the road and actually playing shows in different cities again. Um,
It's been great. Yeah. It's
how has it
nice to
been
get out of the city.
actually? Oh, sorry, I got a delay for a second there. My bad.
No,
Um, how is it actually playing shows again and like traveling in all this?
it's great. I mean, I'm pretty confident that America has been a bit quicker to reopen than Canada has. And
Hmm.
so it's been a sort of the status quo for a while now, traveling and performing. And so it feels somewhat business as usual.
Hmm.
It's funny, the first gig I played back from the pandemic, I really felt I had done a couple live streams during it, but the first one in front of an audience, I had really prepped myself for what I was expecting to be an emotional, I was expecting to be so overcome with emotion, during that first performance. And really, in all actuality, it just felt as if it was business as usual
Hmm.
when I was up there. It's almost as if the entire pandemic never had happened. It was so bizarre. It was not the feeling I was expecting. It wasn't really until after I walked off stage, and more so maybe the next day, that I was like, wow, I really just did that. Um, and it's been so long. But while I was up there, it was totally fine. What I will say is, I played a few gigs in New York now. It is such a great feeling to be out on the road again, to play different cities, to see people. Um, and I'm doing it in kind of a fun way where it's like I'm traveling with my girlfriend, we're sort of seeing her family, we're doing vacationing, and then in every city that we're in, I book a show. I see some people, do some sessions. It's so casual. It's really
That's
nice.
perfect.
Yeah. It's the
That's
most
like the
casual tour I've ever been on. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that kind of sounds ideal because usually when you're on tour, I mean, you don't actually get to spend any time in the city. You have sound check, you have
Like
interviews, you have the show, and then you get in the car and you keep going.
1 or 2
And
days, tops, two
yeah,
days. Yeah.
yeah. And especially when you're on a label, they try to fill all the off time with like press and all the things they want you to do while you're in market. So
Yeah.
it's like you actually get a chance to actually travel and enjoy traveling.
Yeah. It's
More
been
bands should do
wonderful.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. Go with your significant other. Just travel normally and yeah, take your
Hmm.
time.
Perfect plan.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed so far with the singles from the upcoming record, the first, I guess the first album and the first EP felt very like city like, if that
Mm.
makes sense. And then Surviving the Suburbs, obviously, it was about the suburbs and it felt different. Like it had that more suburban quality to it. It felt like it was somewhere else and like out of place. And then the singles so far feel like they're back in New York again.
Mm.
um, how has how has I guess being back in New York affected your music or where you pull inspiration from?
Well, um, it's interesting because with this new record, it's a fair mix of music I had written 5 years ago and brand new.
Mhm.
music. Even and the music that I had written long ago has since been edited and sort of shifted and changed a bit. But I think that you just become a product of the environment in which you're in, right? And it affects how you feel and very subconsciously as well. And so your day to day is just so vastly different in where I was in New Jersey to where I am now in New York that I don't even, well, when Adrian and I were first talking about the record, we were saying, wouldn't it be kind of great to make something that felt so Lower East Side? Everyone that we knew had moved out to Los Angeles. We wanted to rep New York City as hard as possible. I had been doing that earlier too. So we kind of wanted to reclaim that feeling. We pretty much lived in the same neighborhood. So we were saying, like, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we made a record that sounded like if Billy Joel were going to make a Talking Heads album, you know? And so that's kind of where we came from. And then a lot of the influences that we were pulling from were very much uh, New York City, Lower East Side based. Like the ending of All Time Low there, when it builds and gets kind of crazy, the sort of Sigur Rós moment, we were really thinking about, like, not that it really sounds like this, but we were inspired by Suicide, which was just a huge Lower East Side band in the 70s. And we like made a very conscious effort to like tap into the area that in which we were living and the history of that place, and realizing that so many people that we loved, like John Cale and the whole Velvet Under, living in a couple blocks away from where we were recording. So there's so much history. And yeah, so I'd say like half of it was very meticulously kind of thought out, and we listened to certain records that we knew were made in the area. And then the other part of it is just subconscious and just existing in your habitat, in your environment. And then that
Mhm.
just finds its way in there anyway, you know.
That's cool. Um, I think one other thing I want to ask you about is I know, uh, I mean, we've talked about this already, but like being at a label, you kind of have to follow other people's plan for yourself as well as your own. Is there anything that you got to do on this record that you've been wanting to do and didn't get the chance before, or whether with the music or the visuals or different plans
Yeah,
you've made?
well, I'd say that All Time Low was a song I always considered releasing. I had somewhat been talked out of it at times. It's sort of thinking. Yeah, like there's several songs. I mean, all of the old songs on the
Mm-hmm.
album, quote unquote old songs, but the ones I had started years ago were ones that were kind of shunned by those around me, that I worked with, like not really getting a reaction from people. And I just felt like, no, these are good songs. You just don't hear what I'm hearing. And so I made a point to really to carry those along with me and just be like, I know these are good, so I'm going to record them. And so that was a really great feeling to just see it and really nurture these things and not give up on these songs. Uh, and so that was, yeah, it feels like kind of full circle in a way.
That's cool. And I feel like you know your music better than anyone else. So you know when there's something there.
A
And
hundred
it's,
percent. And so that's why I'm so happy to finally be doing it, because it's easy to just be like, ah, there's something with it, and then just leave it, and then kind of feel a bit resentful. Um, so I'm glad that I've avoided that. But um, you got to fight for it. I
mhm.
just was sick of having to convince everyone that I should do something, that
Yeah.
I should do something. So I'm very much more at ease, feeling as though I just can make my own decisions and no one can tell me no. And, I mean, I still listen to people. I don't want it to seem
Yeah,
as if
yeah.
like I'm out here being like not taking any advice, because that's not true. But um, yeah, it's just a balancing act.
That's awesome. And I'm excited to hear where this all goes. I can't wait to hear the whole album. As your fans and listeners out here, what are the things we can do right now for you as an independent artist to help support you the most?
Well, I mean, just stream the shit out of these songs and keep an eye out for the record. And I really hope to be out in Canada again touring, because it's always been it's really my number one place and where I have my biggest shows. So I'm pushing real hard to figure out how I can get out there again soon. Um, so just keep an eye out for everything. Record I believe is going to be early, probably February, March of 2022.
It's so exciting. That's so
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, like now I've said it and I'm like, oh shit. But I think, yeah, it's flexible because I'm doing it on my own. So we'll see.
Mhm.
But early 2022 is what I'm thinking.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for making the time for us, Tor, and I'm wishing you the best
Of
of luck on
course.
everything.
It's always great to see you. Yeah.
You too.